recovering from a bachelorette party. I was out of town for a friend's bachelorette party. So I was obviously dehydrated. I always like to say that because I feel like that's something. I wasn't a big worker outer as, some people are, and I know that it's common, but I had worked out with a friend at a friend's gym, and the personal trainer had an opening in the class. And so instead of just doing my own workout at a random gym, I said, sure, I'll join. So I ended up doing an hour workout with a friend. It was a small group, maybe 4 or 5 of us. And I immediately said, hey, like, I'm just going to be in the back here. Like, I'm just, I haven't worked out in quite some time. And, and I thought I was, I'm always kind of like outspoken and joking about it. So now looking back, maybe I should have been a little bit more serious, but I was just like, hey, I'm super out of shape. I'll be in the back, And I think for him, he was probably like, oh, I got you. Like, let's do this. I'll get you in shape, or I'll show you a good workout kind of thing. And so I never said like, oh, this is too much for me. Like I should really stop. I obviously was in pain. I'd done maybe yoga, hiking, before this previously. So I'm 30, that was when I was 28. So maybe in my early 20s, I had done a lot of interval workouts and CrossFit type exercises, I guess you could say. But there was a few years where I really didn't do anything other than like hiking and yoga and that kind of stuff. So immediately the day of the workout, I could barely move. I could barely walk. And I just thought, I obviously threw out my back. That was the most obvious thing, because I had never heard of any sort of sickness besides like delayed onset muscle soreness. But I think I've obviously had that. And my friend had just had a baby at the time. So I was holding the baby on the couch, and I went to get up and I could not get up. So I had to set the baby down on the couch, roll over to so my chest was on the couch, get up from the couch that way. And I was like, okay, so something's really wrong here, and then I noticed that my pee was a little bubbly or frothy, I kind of say, kind of like a beer, which I know is kind of TMI. But it wasn't like any sort of strange color. And it was kind of like, I don't even think I would have noticed it if I wasn't feeling any sort of uncomfortable or any pain. Anyway, so I ended up flying home, I think the next day or maybe 2 days after. I went to a job at the time. I was costuming for TV and movies. And so we have like trailers that we have to step into, obviously, and all these actors' trailers that we have to go step into their trailers to set their clothes. And I could not walk up the stairs. I could not lift my leg, 6 inches, 8 inches to step. So I had to go to the back of the trailer, lower the lift gate, bring myself up to the trailer on the lift gate. And I just really didn't call any attention to it. I didn't want to look weak on set or have anyone be like, what are you doing here? Are you okay? And not that they would have, because that industry is so crazy. But so eventually, about halfway through the day, a costumer friend of mine says, are you okay? I said, yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of like, it's a lot of work today. I'm hot. I think I threw out my back working out. And she's like, step outside, and I'm like, I don't have makeup on. I'm very red in the face. That's what it is. And she's like, I don't know. You look bad. I'm like, great. So I step outside, I have a Gatorade, and come back in a little bit later. She's talking to a coworker of ours, and she's like, doesn't Paige look off? And I tell the other coworker, I said, I think I threw out my back. I'm not feeling well. Yes, correct. I'm not feeling well. And she goes, oh, well, how'd you throw out your back? And I said, well, I just did a random workout class. I haven't worked out in a while. And, we were doing a lot of leg and a lot of like lower body exercises that obviously just threw out my back. She goes, oh my gosh, I heard this girl at my gym just got sick, something to do with working out. It's called something, I can't remember what it is, but you should look into it. I was like, uh-oh, what is this? So I texted my friend who has previously been a CrossFit trainer. She's a nutritionist. She's just kind of very knowledgeable in a lot of things. I'll text her like just random things, if I have a headache for too many days in a row, I'm like, you think I'm okay? And she'll be like, are you dehydrated, or something like that. So I kind of text her frequently with questions. And I thought she was just going to give me the normal Paige, like, you're good, you just throw out your back kind of thing. And I told her, I said, hey, I worked out 2 days ago, lower body workout. I can barely walk. I can barely bend over. My lower back is killing me. My pee is kind of like bubbly, frothy. Am I going to be okay? And she responded with, you have rhabdo. You need to go to the emergency room immediately, and don't leave. And they're not going to believe you. And while she's texting me this, I have no idea what rhabdo is. I've never heard of this in my life. And she said, they're not going to believe you. They'll think that you're just dehydrated. They're not going to believe that you got this sickness from one workout. Do not leave until, and she texted me this list of, I think it was like, make sure they check your urine, make sure they check your CPKs, your myoglobins, I think. Do not leave. And I was like, okay, got it. So I rushed to the hospital. I left work. I was working about 45 minutes away from my hometown, and I just felt like I wanted to be close to I'm not sure why that felt necessary, but I wanted to be somewhere close by in case this was really bad. And so I ended up stopping at an urgent care first that I had been to before. And I called on the way and I said, hey, I think I have this. Are you guys able to treat me for this? Like, at an urgent care, I wasn't sure if that was something that they could test for. And they said, yeah. I said, great. What time do you close? They said 6:30. I pull up to the urgent care at 6:10. There's a note on the door and it says, we're closed early due to a company holiday party. I was like, this is how I die. This is how I die. I had no idea. I was like, how do you close an urgent? And I just called and now the note says you're closed. So anyway, I called my friend back. I'm like, the urgent care I stopped at, they're closed. And so she finds me an emergency room. I go there. Sure enough, the doctor and the nurses were like, you're probably just dehydrated, but like, okay, we'll get you going on an IV. You said you were at a bachelorette party. You only worked out once. There's no way you have this. And one of the nurses had no idea what it was. And they said, like, you can we'll probably just give you an IV and you can go home. And I was like, I'm not leaving until you test this. I showed them my phone. I said, I'm not leaving. So you need to test me. Okay, fine. Well, we'll start you on the IV because it's probably just severe dehydration. Okay. They come back. Hey, so your urine is kind of hard to test at the moment. Like, we're having a hard time getting whatever read on it. So we're going to go ahead and admit you. I'm like, okay. And I kind of like, anything weird that happens will happen to me. Like, there's always a story behind everything. So I feel like I was like, I'm not going to even tell my friends or my family that I'm at an emergency room because it's going to be fine. Nothing's wrong. Sure enough, they admitted me. I ended up spending 5 nights, 6 days in the emergency room, or in the, on the hospital, wherever they admitted me, whatever floor that was. But it was really funny because I just never heard of this before. And I just really didn't even know, nobody really was doing a lot of explaining to me besides my friend. She kept telling me, have them check this next time they come in the room, have them check that. More of the nurses, when they were testing me throughout the night, testing my levels, honey, are you sure you're not taking any pre-workouts? Like, is that how you ended up in this space? And it's 4 a.m. when they're testing me. I'm like, no, I've never taken a pre-workout in my life. I still am just very green on this subject, So after the hospital stay, my legs swelled. Pretty much, I felt like they were kind of normal size until I woke up the next morning from the hospital. I don't know if that had to do of all the liquid that they were putting in me. And I know it was obviously an IV and several other things, but my legs had swelled incredibly, like almost another half size each leg. And if you pushed my thigh, it was not, it was so heavy, like they're so dense. And so when I left the hospital, or when I initially tested, they said that my levels were, a normal level was supposed to be around 100 and for CPK, and my levels were testing at over 14,000. So they were extremely worried. I told my friend this and she was like, this is really bad, but what are your levels? I'm like, I don't know. They just said over 14,000. I assumed that was 14,021. You know what I mean? Like, that was their way of rounding. Turns out they had all these specialists coming in. I don't even know what they're called, the kidney and the liver. And they were asking me, how much I drink and how much Advil and Tylenol I take and all this stuff. And why are your liver levels up? There has to be something else. You're not telling us something. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I have no idea. This is what I did. I had 8 vodka sodas over the weekend. You know what I mean? Turns out their machine only tested up to 14,000 at the emergency room I was at. So when they were saying over 14,000, they didn't know the actual number. And every day they kept saying, your levels aren't going down. Your levels aren't going down, which was causing me a lot of worry, obviously. But finally, they sent out my levels to somewhere else, came back the night before I left the hospital and said, so we sent out your tests and you were actually at 80,000 and something. So this whole time they thought I was supposed to be coming down from 14,000, but really I was coming down from 80. So I hadn't come anywhere near the 14,000. So they were going to keep me in there forever. But anyway, I ended up leaving the hospital and I was just, again, really concerned. I'd never really heard of this. I asked, am I ever going to be able to work out again? What's the aftercare type of situation? And nice enough doctor, but he was just really like, drink a lot of water. I would ease into it and you'll be fine. You know what I mean? I'm like, all right, see you later. Thanks so much. So I end up going home. I mean, I was extremely weak for about a week, I would say, afterwards. Like I didn't go back to work straight away. I was like cloudy too. You know, I think I was still flushing all the poison out. And then about 2 months later, I started back with light yoga, walking, if you want to call it a hike, but just kind of getting my body used to moving again. And my friend encouraged me to go try it. She's like, Paige, you can work out. You just need to be easy. You need to be careful. Okay. So of course I went to an Orange Theory class. I went and asked the instructor before my class if he had known about Rhabdo. He said he'd never heard of it before and he would look into it because obviously it was such a serious thing. I was hospitalized. Go to the class with him the following day. He's like, wow, yeah, okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to ease you back in and we'll get you on a regimen and all this stuff. So I ended up cutting down, whatever he told me to do, I ended up cutting down a lot. It was arm day, I guess we'll call it. The TRXs and pull-ups and push-ups and row machine. And again, I was cutting what he had even told me to do. I woke up the next morning to my alarm clock going off and I could not extend my arm. So of course I freak out. I go out to my roommate. I have rhabdo again. I have rhabdo again. She's like, no, there's no way, Paige. There's no way you have rhabdo again. And it wasn't even to do with your legs. It was an arm day. She was in the class with me. And I was just like, I have it again. It's the same feeling where I couldn't bend my legs. I couldn't step up. It's the same feeling in my arms. You know, they were like this. And so I went to the doctor, got tested. My levels were all extremely increased. But she was like, I can admit you to the hospital, or it's a much less severe situation from last time. And we had been monitoring throughout since my first bout of this. She said, I think it was like around 3,000 or 4,000. And she said, it's way less severe. Do you want to go to the hospital and be treated? Or do you want to just treat this at home with some hydration? And I was like, well, let's treat it at home with some hydration, honey. No need for a hospital stay if we don't need to. So that's what I did. Went home, treated it with hydration, drank a lot of water, liquid IVs, Pedialyte. And then I was scared to work out forever. I would honestly say that I definitely have PTSD. And I think I kind of equate it to some other things that I've been through in my life and some other things that people have been through in their life. And I'm like, I don't really use that term, Paige. That's a lot. But I do. I'm scared to work out. And then when I do work out and then I kind of get in a good habit and I stop for some reason, then I'm scared to start back up again. I'm, who knows why did it happen to me in my legs and then in my arms? Am I like prone to getting it now because I, have had it before? And then, so that's when I contacted you